Hi, welcome to Talking and Reading from Japan. I'm your host, Hidemi Woods. I read episodes here of the books I wrote and talk about it or talk about anything that comes into my mind. I hope you enjoy with me. Today, I read one episode from one of my books. The book is titled The Girl in Kyoto. Today's episode is called Kabu. This episode is about the card game I used to play at my grandparents' house in the New Year's holiday. Kabu. The living room in my grandparents' home was used for a card game when the house turned into a family casino during New Year's. The game was a blackjack-like one called Kabu and organized by my uncle. It used to be the best treat of New Year's for me in my childhood and early in my teens. Unlike Motorola I had introduced before, this game was played seriously and intensely because it was for high stakes. The players usually bet $1 or more, sometimes as high as $100. The deeper into the night it got, the higher the bet went. The family members would leave the table one by one, as the higher bet would make them tense and deprive them of pleasure. As for me, I liked to see the game get heated so much and would play throughout the night until the game came to an end in the next morning. The usual players who stayed at the table near dawn would be my uncle, who was a dealer, my eldest cousin, my mother, and I. My uncle was a successor of the family by marriage, and so my grandparents were his in-laws. He was on terrible terms with my grandmother, who raised my eldest cousin in place of him and his wife because they were too busy working at the family farm. Consequently, he didn't get along well with his own son either. New Year's Kabu would become an intense battle between my uncle and my cousin by dawn. My uncle couldn't lose, especially to his son, and that made the game extraordinarily thrilling. My cousin would bet more than $10 on each deal, and my heart would be pounding by seeing bills on the table. My uncle would concentrate on the cards dealt to him, and his son too deeply to care about my small bets. Because he would forget to count me in and settle my deal thoughtlessly each time, I would end up winning quite a big amount of money in total every year. He would summon all his strength when he saw the last card dealt to him. In spite of his prayer-like chants, "Come on, come on!" most of the time the card would be the least one he had wanted. Hand after hand, he drew the worst card possible while my cousin was rolling on the tatami floor, to stifle his giggling. As far as I remember, he had never won against my cousin. He was manly and frank, but I can still picture him going back to his room after the game in the morning light, with unsteady steps, worn out, drooping, and on the verge of tears. 3 months after the house was burnt down, he died of cancer without becoming the head of the family. That was today's episode. I have lots of fond memories about my grandparents' house and the family. I liked the whole family members so much. They are my favorite people. They lived in a really remote rural area of Japan, and their house was about a 30-minute drive away from my own house. So every time my father drove us to their house was a big pleasure for me. I don't exaggerate when I say their house was a Disneyland for me in my childhood. I had so much fun there because my own family, I lived with my grandparents and my parents and my sister. Especially my grandparents who raised me in place of my parents who were also busy in the fields as farmers. My grandparents were so strict, so hard to be with. I was tense all the time with them, although I lived with them, saw them every day. But on the contrary, the grandparents on my mother's side were such nice people. They were friendly and they were thoughtful. They were so gentle, kind, nice to me. So it was a kind of an escape from my own house to visit them. And the house was, they lived in a big traditional farmer's wooden house, but was a really huge house. And as a Japanese tradition, according to a Japanese tradition, they all lived together. In an old Japanese tradition, the firstborn, mainly boy, stays in the parents' house after marriage and lives together. And So that tradition was followed as well in my family. So that's why I lived with my grandparents, because my father stayed with them after he got married with my mother. So basically, the farmer's household in Japan in old days were a big family. It naturally went that way. And the grandparents' house that was introduced in the episode I've just read was had 7 members of 7 family members in total. My grandparents, my aunt, uncle, and my 3 cousins. And this New Year's gambling game was a big event, because in total, including my family who were visiting there, 11 people were playing the game. 11 people were participating an annual gambling event at the house. It's funny. But to be precise, my grandfather and my father didn't participate because those 2 were not interested in gambling. But other 9 were absorbed and concentrated on gambling until the next morning, because it's such a huge event for us all. And I really liked Kabu because of its tense, thrilling atmosphere that would come from the tension between my uncle and my eldest cousin, who weren't getting along well, although they were father and son. They couldn't get along well, sadly. So it was a true battle between them. And part of fun for me was betting money and sometimes winning. But I also like to see the serious battle between them. And my uncle, he was such a character. He died of cancer, but I still miss him so much. he was really got into the battle so intently, and looking at him was even funnier because sometimes you look at a person who are completely absorbed in a trifle meaningless thing is funny, isn't it? That was me as a child. It was very, very funny for me to see him playing that game because he was an adult, but he was he concentrated, focused on the game so much. I had never seen an adult person who just was gulped into one trivial game so much. And the funniest part was for some reason, he always lost. I wonder, as a child, many times I wondered why he lost every time, every bet. I couldn't stop laughing when I recall his losing ways, his losing streaks. It was so funny and mysterious. For some reason, he never won. Although he was a dealer, and he bet me big. He always said that. And he lost and paid big time. And as the dawn approaches, the remaining members at the gambling table are my eldest cousin, my uncle, and me. Because although I bet a small amount of money on each bet, because I stayed at the table for a long time, all night to be precise. The total amount wasn't small at all. Was really usually amounted several $100s. That was all because my uncle was lousy at that game. And thanks to him, I had quite a lot of amount of money in my wallet all year long. beside my monthly beside my money that was given by my parents, and allowance beside my monthly allowance. So the biggest part of my allowance of the year was from my uncle. And after he lost big every year, the way he left the table was so amazingly pictureless, so to speak. He's literally weeping, crying, because he lost $100 easily to his son. So when the morning comes, he would he would be his energy was sucked completely, and he just drooping and a little bit weeping and going back to his own room. And my cousin was rolling around the floor, giggling, and I was collecting my winning money, and so I felt sorry for him, but just so weird and strange that my uncle's cards were too bad every time. I still don't know why it worked that way. Who dealt the cards for my uncle? Why he kept losing, and why he kept picking those bad cards, weak cards every time. And I still don't know the answer, but I feel sorry for him because he lost big every year, but at least he gave me so much money, and above all, more than that money, he gave such a tremendously enjoyable memory for me, because I couldn't forget that excitement, that thrill ever until still I vividly remember those feelings and that special place, event, the special space I shared that was forever gone because it was burned down by my grandmother's candle at the Buddhist altar. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. If you are interested in other materials I wrote or my music, please visit hidemiwoods.com, HIDEMI woods.com, where everything of my contents like music, songs, books, ebooks, or podcast, or blogs, even the merchandise that features my own illustration and my design. So if you are interested, please come and check it out. Thanks again. I hope I can see you here and see you join me again. Until next time, take care and be well.